Just got the selenium from the industrial supplier. I'm gonna open it up and take a look. And there it is. 3 kilograms of elemental selenium. The spec sheet on the product said it was 200 mesh, but it might even be more fine than that. It's just getting into the pore spaces on my fingers. So it's definitely a very well ground powder. I've got my salsa containers ready here and I'm all packed up. This is 1.8 grams approximately. Gonna put this on each specimen fruit tree all over the property. Got 100 salsa containers right here ready to go. So there's the elemental selenium you can see on the blades of grass here. Looks like somebody rubbed some ash all over the leaves. So this selenium's a very fine material. I just spread it out here under this Brazil nut tree, which is actually a selenium accumulating species. Now you probably wouldn't want to spread this out on a windy day because it'd be like watching your money blow away in the wind. But the good news with this is it's very light. It's not going to break my back trying to apply this out here to my fruit trees. What I'm adding is the equivalent of 1 part per million to each of the fruit trees. But it's actually not a soluble form of selenium, just being the elemental form that it is. It's not like a sodium selenate. So what we want to accomplish here is to increase the population of selenium oxidizing bacteria. So we want to improve the soil, build up the organic matter, and help create better habitat for those sorts of microorganisms that are going to break the elemental selenium and turn it into a soluble form that these trees can take up. Now in a previous video I talked about why I want to add very small quantities of beneficial elements to this landscape, and that has to do a lot with the topography and the access, as well as the labor cost of actually spreading large quantities of, say, dolomite, lime, or even manure in some cases. And in that video I was actually talking about iodine. Today I'm out here and I'm applying 1 part per million to each fruit tree of elemental selenium. Now Dr. David Johnson of the infamous Johnson-Su bioreactor talks about how the Earth's crust is made up of 50 parts per billion selenium. And that's a lot less than the 1 part per million, which falls squarely within the optimal range of what plants want.
Selenium, very small concentration in the Earth's crust. It's about 50 parts per billion. You need it in your body at 200 parts per billion. Without it, you have problems with your immune function, viral infections, reproduction, mood, thyroid function, cardiovascular disease, and cancer.
On our property, we took soil tests from multiple locations, and none of those tests came back with the detectable amount of selenium. The detection limit from this laboratory was 0.5 part per million, so we know we have less than that. And this laboratory used inductively coupled plasma to determine the total levels of elements that are in the soil. So you can see that the selenium is less than the detectable amount. And this is actually the sample that we pulled from an area of the property with more fertility than some of the other areas. And it actually has good levels of different elements. But as you can see, selenium is less than the minimum detectable amount. And then this was actually a rock that we pulled the sample from in that area with a purple color. And selenium was 0 there, but it was kind of an interesting sample because the rock showed quite a bit of magnesium and also cobalt. This was the only case where we actually had a detectable amount of cobalt, 10 parts per million. So I went on to ChatGPT just to do a little back of the napkin calculation based on our 1,100 trees per hectare. And I figured I wanted to give each of our fruit trees 1 part per million, or the equivalent of what is 1 part per million. So it's basing that calculation on a bulk density of 1.3 grams per centimeter cubed of our soil. And it gives me the result 1.77 grams per tree. So I just rounded that up to 1.8 grams. It's a 200 mesh selenium. It's a very fine powder, 74 microns or smaller. And then I asked ChatGPT to give me an estimate of how long it would take this elemental selenium to become bioavailable. And it estimates 3 months to 2 years, depending on the conditions. Now, most farmers, when they apply selenium, they're going to use a soluble form like sodium selenate or sodium selenite. And the advantages are clear. I mean, you just apply that, and most people use it as a foliar. It goes straight into the plant, and immediately you correct the deficiency. But as you can see, the cost to obtain 1 kilogram of selenium in those cases, even on the low end estimate, based on global prices, is significantly more than the $220 per kilo for the elemental selenium that I used in this case. So that's a pretty significant cost saving. So if you can be okay with the fact that maybe this isn't going to be available for up to 2 years, then it makes sense from a cost perspective just to go with the elemental selenium. And in my case, I'm really not trying to just apply a quick correction. I want to build up the soil levels over time and increase the reserves of different nutrients that are available to my plants over time.
Hey, if you like this kind of content, leave us a comment and subscribe.